Today we're at the Chicago Auto Show, and what we have behind us here is the North America Intent Volkswagen ID.Buzz. Now, we don't have a chance to drive this, we don't have a lot of specifics on it, at least here in the United States, but it is my first chance to take a look at it in person, get inside, crawl around, and see if this ID.Buzz really does harken back to the Volkswagen bus, not just in a positive way, but is it the right move for this market? Immediately when you look at the front, you are going to see an homage to the bus of old, but it is going to be very much updated. Now, honestly, this feels like when the new Beetle came out and they had the retro throwback look. I do think this is done very well. It might just be this blue and white two-tone, but I think it's implemented very well. And what we have seen that is a little bit unexpected is that we've got a very, very, very short nose, because these days crash tests are very different than they used to be, maybe before they existed. And we do have to make sure that the crash structure is built and in place. So having this short nose is very much the throwback, but also very unusual. We will see as we get into the cabin that that dash does go quite a ways back. So I'd be curious to see the structure under this without all the sheet metal. But in the meantime, I just appreciate that it's a little bit different. Now, down to the wheels, we are going to see very much a common electric wheel theme, which is a covered wheel, a aero shield. But I think they've done a good balance here of what needs to be done for efficiency, as well as just a fun little style. Now, that bus didn't need a bunch of different pieces to make it an iconic look. So the fact that we don't have, a flower petal wheel, I think is just fine by me. Moving along the side, we do only get the 3-row Buzz here in the United States, where over in Europe they do get a 2-row. I understand that that's something that really fits the market, but I'm a little disappointed we don't get the smaller variant. That said, it is nice to get another sliding door in the United States, and this one, assuming we get it on the ground here within the next couple years, should be the first sliding door EV. So for those who like the minivan, or in this case maybe even a minivan, although that is a relative concept, this is going to be a great option because sliding doors are usually a little bit easier getting in and out of. Honestly, I would love to see this as a, not company vehicle, but maybe a transport vehicle at like a retirement home, because that is going to be some of the benefit of the ease of in and out. And it'd be a fun little throwback for folks who may have driven these back in the day. I'll start by climbing here into the rear seat, and one of the first things I noticed is that this is a child seat friendly second row, because the whole seat is fixed and flips forward, so your forward facing child seat would work even if you can't get it all the way forward. For my ease, I'm gonna go ahead and put it all the way forward. It's a short step climbing in, and as soon as I get to the back here, as soon as I adjust that headrest, I actually have just enough room to fit fairly comfortably. This is still a little bit in my back. I could lift it up here a little bit. But if we're putting 2 people back here, which is how many seats, I think it's a good fit. We have just enough width. It would be nice if we could squeeze in something like a little armrest, but I've got cup holders. It looks like there's a little pocket here to slide your phone in. Your vents are going to be up in the top here, which is great because some third rows don't end up with vents at all. And at what I expect the price point to be, it is something you're going to want to have included. Now, this seat is set all the way back, I think, and if I slid over, there is plenty of room. So upright seating position, my legs are not too high off the seat, and there's enough room that I think this could be great if you use it the third row on a regular basis and are willing to do something different than an SUV. Now, getting into the second row from the back, like I said, it is nice and easy. This is a pretty large and wide opening. Putting these seats back is going to be a 2-step function. I'll go ahead and lock it in place and slide it backwards. Again, we don't have pricing or packages. This one is a manual seat. It is 3 across, and for something that I think is intended to be more functional than impractical, it's nice to have a bench seat here rather than captain's chairs. We might see that down the road, that I don't know. Up here, I do still have my vents up above, instead of down in the center console where there really isn't a rear access center console for that second row. We do have trays here for those passengers, and up here I have the controls for the ventilation. Again, since we don't have it there in the front, it's nice to make sure that we can make some changes. From the first and second rows, you can see the huge glass moonroof, and this one at the moment seems to be fairly opaque. I don't know if that's going to be a chromatic switch that we see in some of the Lexus models right now. But either way, it opens this thing up, and that's one of the things the bus was known for, is having many windows and lots of open room. I'm very comfortable here in the second row. We do have that flat floor, and for families or folks who do a lot of transport, this is going to be a great fit. Hopping up here into the driver's seat is sort of a unique experience, not just because of how high this sits. We are a tall seating position because it is a van, and we also are sitting on top of the battery. So this feels fairly high, especially for how big the vehicle isn't really. But also that this view is very different. We have very large A-pillar windows, which again throws back to that original bus, but we don't normally see something so large as we do here. The front windshield is also very flat, which sort of feels like a Jeep or off-road SUV, but it is quite a bit bigger. Now, I am with the seat all the way down here at the bottom. I do have a rather tall torso, but with the glass above me, with the windows in front of me, I don't at all feel cramped in what is still a relatively sized machine. The design in here is somewhat retro inspired, but also future technology facing. We have a unique peach look here with sort of an off-white cream design. You'll notice in the doors that it is not immensely sculpted. There are some pockets here. It is going to be set up to be comfortable, and that ridge on the very top there is going to be a great armrest, if not the most padded. Moving across the side, we have a great little tray, great for phones, a tablet, your sunglasses, whatever you might bring here. I do love a good tray, as well as the still included glove box. The rest of the dashboard remains fairly flat, and I think a good version of out of the way. We do have a large enough touchscreen display here. We have our heating and cooling, which is going to be a mix of touchscreen and physical buttons. Down below, we're going to have a few more button bank features here, and this is really going to be for your doors so that you can turn the doors automatic off or open left or right. And further down, we'll see that this is still a very flat floor so that you can throw something like a backpack or a purse right in the middle there, which means you won't have to use the center console for those larger items. And this is broken up here into a couple different cup holders, and it still remains pretty small to help increase the space that you get here in the cabin. Now for the steering wheel itself, I do like this. This is a nice light wheel. It does add to the airiness of the cabin, and this is a pretty standard Volkswagen design. Nothing too much to say here about the wheel, and I don't expect many changes to come before this actually hits production. One thing I did just notice off to the right here of the steering wheel is that we have two USB-C ports and a slot that looks deceptively small, but if I put my S23 Ultra in there, it's the perfect size to slide that in head first and have my phone connected. This is likely where we're going to set up for Android Auto or Apple CarPlay. I would be remiss if we didn't cover these pedals. We have a play and a pause pedal. It's one of those things with electric vehicles where you don't really want to call it a gas pedal, instead usually calling it something like a throttle, but the stop and go pedal is really well implemented here in this vehicle, and I very much hope that we see that in the rest of the models available. No van is complete without taking a look here at the rear cargo capacity, and the first thing I noticed when we got this thing opened up is that this is a very large hatch, so that is something you would want to consider when you're parking. It is nice that here at 6 feet tall, I have tons of room under this, but again, you might want to check the height of your garage, see where your garage door is hanging down to make sure that it would fit. With the third row up, we are going to be fairly limited in space, but what we get from the van aesthetic and shape is that we get a much taller section than you would find in most SUVs that have a third row. Now, this middle section here, I believe can be removed. Right now it is set up so that we have tiered storage. Certainly not a bad thing. It would just depend on what you need. My hope is that this would be an accessory and could be removed. Just at this time, I can't confirm. Now, if you don't need that third row, you are able to fold it down here. I'm not sure if we can take it completely out of the vehicle, but for the moment, if we fold it down, you'll see that this creates that flat load floor, so that dual level scenario. But you also notice that there's still some room in front of those seats, and those second row seats do slide forward. So if you found yourself needing extra room, you could slide these in theory all the way up here and get honestly about 1.5 to 2 extra feet in this space. If you wanted to make this a completely flat platform, I'm sure it would not be too difficult to either have an accessory available from Volkswagen or create a little shelf here, and you can fit a whole lot of stuff in the back of this vehicle while keeping the third row installed should you need it.